And we're back. This is a Middle Perch live on the internet. I am MTK on the MIC. Today, I have been using the typewriter just to fire off some words for the last several days, and I'm going to read them aloud. So, this is just a first draft of some thoughts that I've been trying to capture to deal with my difficulty of feeling isolated in the current era of the US's history. The last 2 decades to me have been extremely oppressive and wrong-minded, and not the country I moved to. And I am not in support of it. And I find it extremely flawed. And I'm old enough now to be able to express that opinion, and I have reasons for why. And I've been in this country for a long time. I'm 52 years old. I've been in this country for 50 years. So this is not an opinion of a new immigrant off a boat. I'm an American. And because my name is Karthik Tyagarajan, and because I look the way I look, and perhaps because of the way I speak and the way I think, I am treated as if, oh, well, yeah, but your opinion will never be the American way. You need to learn the American way. And that's not the truth of the matter. That's not what this country was supposed to be about. And no one is saying that. So I'm going to try to say that. As an immigrant, I have been asked, encouraged, and pushed to become a good American and to just accept the flaws of the USA. I have been told that the freedom to speak or write or make art about the flaws are what makes it a good country, a great country, and even the greatest country in the world. This has never set well with me. From the very beginning, when I asked anyone to explain to me how this country, the entire country from east to west coast, somehow belongs to the current corporation named a country that occupies it, makes sense. The land was stolen. The previous culture violently denied its rights, pillaged, plundered, and attempted genocide is a serious and honest charge. Couple that with the fact that free labor, through the institutionalization of slavery and indentured servitude for unrealistic contracts that gave away land that doesn't belong to anyone, has never been reconciled. A civil war was fought, and some say won over the matter, yet the dominant culture that wrested away this land remains firmly in control of all the others and any new immigrants who arrive. New immigrants like myself are asked to just forget about that and to sign up for the American way of life, which includes signing up for an absurd economy built on a systematically racist government. My parents did this, and they were model immigrants. They wanted to belong. They wanted me and my sisters to belong. Their contributions to this society, and particularly here in San Antonio, Texas, are legendary. My father helped found the University of Texas at San Antonio. He is the first professor emeritus of that place. He has educated hundreds, if not thousands, of nurses and doctors and scientists in this town. My mother, the same, as a pharmacologist and physics professor. Yet, throughout, they were treated as less than everybody because of their accent, because of their name, and because they were immigrants. I witnessed this firsthand as a child, right? Growing up. And I tried to ask them why we should tolerate it. Why did they? Why should anyone tolerate that? Their replies were, son, don't be stupid. Just don't rock a boat you cannot possibly change. Just go along and get along. Every time I tried to ask them to support my resistance, they told me I was the problem, my thinking. I was failing to comprehend it. This eventually took them to the conclusion that I'm somehow sick or mentally ill, that I have an illness of character or of a mentality, because I've been resistant throughout to this. I've studied the USA. I've been a good American. I've held jobs doing all kinds of complicated things in the United States, at the highest levels of government in Austin, Texas, at the highest levels of publishing in New York, and in media in Los Angeles, and in art and in science in the Bay Area. I participated a lot. And the more I participated, the more I saw people who were just putting blinders on to function so they could put money in their pocket while not really dealing with the real problem of the USA. And I've been told, because I'm not black and I'm not Latino, right, that if I just play along with the white folks, I can be among the white folks in their highest aspect. I have to just play along. And I found that troubling. Though I did it many times, I've always found it troubling. So I began protecting myself from them and everyone else, and even my parents. And that's what's led me here. The idea that I'm being told that my experiences and judgment of the United States is wrong, that I am the problem, I find this extremely difficult to accept. We are from a 5,000-year-old culture. It's older than Christianity. It's older than Islam. It's older than Judaism, arguably. I'm from a small village in South India. It's been there forever. We had universities and water systems and complicated things when people in Europe were just like apes, crawling around in the dirt. So it's very difficult for me to be told when we were not coming here as immigrants, as someone suffering in a previous culture. We were intellectuals coming here, and my parents' task was to educate people, and they did. And those same people mocked them as inferior because they were from India. This is upside down to me. I believe I have the moral authority by virtue of being born a Tamil person and then having moved to the United States as a child and having studied many parts of it and many elements of its culture, a suspect term, given that the native culture was assaulted by Europeans who, for the past 5 centuries, systematically pillaged, plundered, and attempted to genocide them, whom they called Indian. They called them Indian because they had hoped to reach where I was born and do whatever they were going to do to my people when they got there. So as a Tamil-born Indian, educated here in the West, throughout my time, I've participated, but I've been conducting my own study of what I call the Occidental Quadrisphere. That is the USA and Europe. I have maintained intellectual and cultural distance and separation from identifying with what I consider to be clearly horrific acts that have empowered the people and government residing here now. It's what's kept me out of the academy. When I went to get my master's degree, more and more I realized all that's happening now is the lies are being refined into a language. And if you just learn that, you're just refining it. This is very frustrating. And I know it's a very stubborn position. And I know that people hearing it will think, well, man, you're just crazy. What do you think you can do? Well, what I think I can do is communicate honestly about this and have us all agree that some things are facts, and we're just denying them and plowing along. And that's just gotten worse and worse and worse. In the past 2 decades, I feel, things have changed. I studied this country carefully and in great detail. The laws, the history, lots of the cities, people, how do people live? I lived 5 years in New York, 5 years in the Bay, 10 years in the Bay, 12 years in the Bay, 5 years in Austin, 10 years here in San Antonio, 5 years in Los Angeles. I've explored the entire country. I visited 44 states. I've driven this country both there and back, west to east, east to west. I've gone from here to DC. I've gone from here to the West Coast. I've driven up to Chicago and back. I've covered this state and country with tremendous investigative and personal effort. On my dime, I paid for all of it, okay? And I've tried to communicate clearly what I believe and understand to be wrong with this country. And to its credit, to the credit of the United States of America, until my 33rd year, right, until about 20 years ago, my 29th year as a U.S. citizen, until my 29th year as a U.S. citizen, I feel that the freedoms and intellectual culture here to allow true free expression existed. That's why I keep saying in 99, it felt like the millennium was going to be something great. We were starting to begin to be honest. More diversity was starting to happen. And then, boom, fixed election, and then, boom, 9/11, and then straight down to the Stone Age and what we're living in now. I'm an oppressed person, it feels like. In the past 2 decades, the freedom of expression has been eroded so much that my views and beliefs are derided, and I am isolated by my perception of the West, even though they're truths. I'm being told and have been for decades that now I must change my beliefs to support the narrative in order to be an American. I fundamentally disagree with this. I'm being told that by fundamentally disagreeing with it, I should be forced to leave now. I'm being told my views are not only incorrect, but that they lack merit and are outrageous and even insane. I am an oppressed intellectual in the United States because if I attempt to communicate my beliefs of pacifism, socialism, and communism, or about certain events in American history, I am unpublishable. I am isolated from media. I am pushed away. That's how I ended up at Pacifica, one of the few places, because it is independent, that allows that kind of freedom of thought and intellectual pursuit and expression. Unfortunately, it is also filled, because there's no way to stop that, with disinformation and agents of the government and other entities who can manipulate it very easily. The isolation I feel at my age now is, I wrote unbearable here, but obviously I'm trying to bear it. But I'm lonesome and I'm depressed because I lack intellectual, artistic, and cultural support. Let's see what else we got here. I am the grandson of a Gandhian revolutionary. My grandfather went to jail twice. They jailed him twice. He met Gandhi. He started a commune in Gandhi's name with 25 families in Tamil Nadu. He went to jail twice to protest the occupation of our country by the British, and I was raised never to forget that and to be proud of my heritage and our values and beliefs. It is part of my reasoning and has been throughout my time in the West why I'm so stubborn about this. If my grandfather could go to jail twice for freedom of thought from Western oppression, then I have to be loving of the African Americans and Native Americans here and the other people who are being oppressed, the Latin Americans who are being oppressed here, and help them to communicate this. My parents were part of the revolution as well. And after freedom, my father proceeded to become one of the foremost organic chemists in the world. And that is no exaggeration. He decided to take his talents to the United States. And in fact, the United States and England and many countries begged him to come. Indians were not allowed to come here because of the act that had been passed. I forget the name of it now, but my father was among the first 40,000 Indians to even come to the United States. And he was begged to be here for his mind and what he could do for the United States. And he came because he believed it would be the best for his children and his wife and for his career as a scientist. The United States worked tirelessly to get my father to become an American. Senators and congressmen were moved to give him citizenship and to be able to work on classified and top secret projects. My dad contributed so much to this country. That founding of UTSA was his last project. And that is how I came to move to the United States in 1969 when I was 2, just a few days before the lunar landing. The Americans landed on the moon as I landed in America, a baby. What has happened since is a complicated series of events and deeds on my part and on the part of the United States. Throughout, I have tried to be intelligent, creative, and maintain my beliefs. But they have now been assaulted so deeply, and I've been rejected so profoundly for thinking the way I think and communicating the way I do, that I feel hurt and betrayed by this country. I am losing a desire to be a part of its future. I don't think I can return to India. They wouldn't need me. But I have traveled with purpose and by design around the world 7 times to make myself an excellent traveler. And so I hope someday to find a place I could belong to and contribute to. But I now greatly fear I am running out of time. What happened to me? I was a boisterous, rambunctious, and active kid who liked being liked. I had a lot of friends, and I created a personality at school here in the US, away from my family culture of South India. Then my family disintegrated, so I didn't have them to turn to. I had only myself to compose my American identity from this artificial one that I was making, right? Because I was being told, go along to get along. And my readings and my experiences and my brain. I consumed everything I could. I read great numbers of books from all over the world. I read about Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, Islam, East Asian philosophies. I studied Buddhism, Taoism, and philosophy. I was lost and afraid of my own mind when I was young, without a guide. And I did not trust the guides I was being given because there are clear lies. And I'm just being told to, go along. I did not trust the guides I was given because they seemed to me to be self-interested liars, composing a message that did not apply to me or to many millions of people that I could see suffering. The narrative of the USA and of the Western canon is riddled with denial of the genocides, enslavement, and oppression of other cultures around the world that benefits them, including the one from which I came, the place where I was born. So, this divided self, I evolved for decades into the being I am now, a placeless, homeless, nationless, floating piece of ash who can participate anywhere. If you wanted me to participate at the highest levels of government, I could. If you wanted me to participate at the highest levels of the arts, I could. If you wanted me to participate in a corporation, I could, but I'm certainly not going to do it for a bottom line that doesn't benefit something of value. But I don't. The fact that I had so few people to turn to in my pursuit of truth made me hateful and angry, and often I did not work or play well with others. I have also been mean sometimes, and more so lately. I am angry, frustrated, and hurt by what has happened to the United States of America. I cannot pretend to be the me I was and still not been able to compose a me that is able to fit into the society I'm forced to now live in. My stubborn commitment to the truths of myself, my truths, and my pursuit of myself and its place in the universe has been detrimental to my ability to connect with anyone. I've always been pretty intelligent and with a great memory, but I was also lazy and work averse sometimes because I could see the work helping things I didn't want to be helping. And things came easily enough to me without working. But I have worked alone to create a complicated and deep view of this world we live in. I have had a very hard time sticking with any one pursuit, and my voracious hunger for learning new stuff often keeps me bouncing around superficially on many topics instead of digging deep into any one of them. The result that I am a generalist is useful only in very certain and specific contexts, and I find it difficult to find work in any of them. I was born in Madras, India, in the southeastern state of Tamil Nadu. The Tamil culture is thousands of years old, with art and literature of a rich and profound intellectual tenor. Yet our culture is largely unknown outside of India or even South India or maybe Malaysia. My father was born in a small riverside village in rural Tamil Nadu. He was dirt poor. My mother was born to a wealthy family in the biggest city, the capital of our home state, Madras, which is now known as Chennai. That it was called Madras when I was born there, and it isn't called Madras anymore, is only one reason for my identity being rootless. When they changed the name of the city where you're born, it's interesting. The second would be that as we moved to the United States of America when I was 2 years old, and I was raised among Americans in Texas from the time I was 7 until I was 22, I was forced to do this kind of creation of self, protecting who I am from where I'm from while learning how to be an American. I truly hate Texas and consider it to be a barbaric, racist, and ignorant place that my parents worked hard to improve, and I am constantly working hard to improve. But they don't care. They consider me to be an outsider, an immigrant, and worthless. I left here in the hopes of never returning, but now I have to be here to care for my father, who has no one else and wants to die here. This is my duty, and it makes me a prisoner. My misery is compounded by the separation from all of my family and from what few friends I made, and even from my own child. I am unemployed. I am homeless, technically, since I don't own any home. And I am worthless, as I have no true financial value. I make art, and it goes out the door, but most days, I feel I have very little to live for. I feel outside of all culture now. And it's severely depressing. I wish I could make just one friend who understood me and would care about me. One friend I could trust and rely on to be present in my life. I have made myself powerless. I have made myself powerless. Because I'm not allowed to have my beliefs and still function in the new United States of America. The new millennium, to me, is a farcical version of the USA, invented and controlled by a wealthy few, run by fascist white supremacists, and kept going by a group of ignorant millennials who just think this is the truth. And this is the problem. How can I end my isolation? I ask myself. Well, I must engage with literature and art. And I go by M.T. Karthik. The M is for Madras, where I was born. So I'll maintain that name. The T for Thiagarajan, my father's given name, and Karthik, my given name. I have an LLC that carries this as my entity, if you will. But the question of how to end my isolation is unanswerable from my current position here in San Antonio. A place where these ideas can get me shot in a parking lot, which is what I fear. These are sad times, and the USA needs to fix itself. It's disgusting.